What's up, everybody? Welcome to this brand new episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Dan here with you. Appreciate you checking us out. Don't forget, you can leave us a voicemail, text us. That line is in the podcast description. Questions, comments, topic ideas, all that good stuff. I want to hear from you, so hit us up on the hotline over there, okay? And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a positive review, like on Apple, so others can find the Man Cave Podcast. All right, it's kind of, a little bit of a slow time in the sports world, right? You got the NBA All-Star break officially underway, so no games there. College basketball is going right now. Badgers back at it after having a week or so, a few days off here in a row. Big game coming up tomorrow against Purdue. Spring training just getting underway, and of course the NFL season's in the book, so a little bit of a quiet time here, but the calendar tells us that it's one of those greeting card holidays. I hear this today and such, whether you choose to celebrate it or not. But we're putting our own sports spin on this thing. All right, we're going to put our own sports spin on this Valentine's Day here. And the questions that I'm throwing out to all of you that I want some input on or answers from is who or what are your biggest sports loves? Now, they can be teams, could be just a team in general, could be a certain team from a certain year. Players could always be a player from the past, maybe when you were younger, it could still be current right now, however you choose it. And your biggest heartbreaks, who broke your heart? Could be a team, could be a player, could be maybe a coach or a general manager, whatever. As long as it's a sports thing, sports related. But was there a team or a player that just, ripped your heart out of your chest and broke it into a million pieces? And then on the flip side here, because this is probably the only team that we could say this for, but if there was somebody out there, now they could be a free agent or maybe somebody who said that they want out and they want to be a new team, who would you shower with flowers and candy and Valentine's Day cards? If you're a Packers fan, who would you shower? What player would you shower with all those gifts to try to get them to come to Green Bay? Who would be your Valentine, okay? My picks, I've got a few here, all right? I'm going to start off with some of the biggest heartbreaks, okay? We'll start off with some of the teams. And now I'm just going to do this in general. Just this one is in general. I don't need to say all the years. Let's just say all the NFC Championship losses in the Aaron Rodgers era, Packers era. Heck, even I'll throw. I remember watching this one as a kid. The Cowboys and Packers one before the Packers finally got over the Cowboys or got to the Super Bowl the following year. But I remember that one. So I'd say the NFC Championship losses, but they're definitely more present or more fresh with all those ones. 07 with the Favre one, 07, 08, however you want to say it. Was the 07 season, it was an 08. That one was definitely a heartbreaker. I was there, I was frozen my tush off, and I swear I got frostbite, and hot chocolate was frozen within 5 minutes, and that used some tuition money to get a ticket for that game, and it was teased. I got teased a lot in that game. How many times Lawrence Tynes, the Giants kicker, missed a field goal, and sitting next to some fans in New York, and they called it every time he was going to miss the field goal, and then you're thinking again, and then an interception, and then the game-winning field goal. So, yep, that one on there too. You could throw in, not even an NFC Championship game, but I was at the 11-12 season when they were 15-1, and they played the Giants in the divisional round. I already had an NFC Championship game ticket, so I'm like, oh, yeah, we're going back. Nope, Giants again just ripped my heart out. So Giants have done that a couple times for me when it's come to being a game at Lambeau. Just completely took my heart out and stomped it on the floor and ripped it apart. What else? You can look at the other. Of course, the Seattle NFC Championship game. Yep. Atlanta one. That was kind of playing with house money, but still, NFC Championship game there. 49ers, of course. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Yep, throw that one on there too. So a lot of playoff losses. Maybe that's the best way to say it. We'll put some playoff losses in there just in general when it comes to green and gold. So I'd throw those in there. Just kind of a general sort of thing. Super Bowl 32 was definitely a heartbreak. Remember still watching that, and I remember when the final pass from Favre over the middle, and it got deflected down, and what grade was I in? I was in 6th, yeah. Just like smacking the wall and thought I broke my wrist, like backhanded that thing. I was like, whoop, and ooh, that hurt for a while after that. Definitely a heartbreak over there. I mean, the biggest heartbreak that I still, to this day, I think being a sports fan, is, and honestly, these could be like personal ones too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a fan. Maybe you were playing in a game and playing in a championship game or something like that. Maybe that still stings with you from your playing days or such. But this one is probably still my biggest one as a fan, and it's the Badger National Championship basketball game. I know we've talked about that before, how many times with disappointments and such, but that one still is in my heart and still breaks my heart thinking about it. Because, and I still believe this, maybe not as much as as soon it was over with. I mean, I had the mindset, and I know I wasn't the only one, but I had this mindset of like, we're not going back. I mean, this was our shot, at least during my lifetime. We're not going to be back in that position, and this was our chance to get it done. And whether it was officiating and just the fact that it was against Duke too, it was like, ah. So I'm not maybe as hard on that stance anymore. Like, they're never going back again, but that still, 10 years later now, still has a spot in my heart, and not for good reasons. The biggest heartbreak for me was that game. Brewers wise, I mean, I would go, well, I mean, you could do a little recency. It was last year's playoff loss. I mean, I know if that still sticks in the hearts for a lot of people, the way it ended. I mean, for crying out loud, you get Sal Frelick hitting that home run, and then you throw out Devin Williams to close it out, and you lose. And it was just, talk about EKG type of game, the highs and the lows, and you're at that high, and then all of a sudden you're just, boo. I woke up Hudson to watch the end of that game, and then they end up losing. I'll throw that one in there. I'll throw 2018, that team, Game 7 against the Dodgers. I mean, just was it Bellinger that caught that in center field? When Yelich, I think it was Yelich that hit that deep shot, and then he made that diving catch or whatever, and just like you could feel it suck the energy out of the stadium and suck the energy out of every fan watching it on TV. So that was a little bit of a heartbreak. You could throw in 2011. I'll throw in 2011 even though it didn't go 7, but I remember being at Game 5, and we were in the parking lot afterwards and found out the Cardinals had beat the Phillies, so we got home field advantage and thinking, all right, we're going to go to the World Series, already thinking about maybe getting tickets, and then nope, Cardinals doing what they've done how many times and just ripped the heart out of all of us Brewers fans in that series too. So those were some of the heartbreaks. Biggest loves, though. Let's maybe turn this into a little bit of a positive. The biggest loves. I mean, the teams that I loved. I mean, I love every Wisconsin team, but just to kind of make it a little bit more. I don't. What am I trying to say here? I'm not going to make it general. I mean, Green Bay is my number one. I mean, you go to if you've ever walked in my man cave and such, it'll be clearly evident Green Bay is my number one. But if I'm making it more in depth or whatever, these are the specific teams that I loved the most when it came to Green Bay. I mean, the 96 Packers, Favre, White, Andre, Beebe, Keith Jackson, Mark Tremura, Sean Jones, George Kuntz, Brian Williams, Craig Newsome, Leroy Butler, Eugene Robinson, Mark Pryor, Chris Jackie, Craig Hentrick. I mean, that's one team that I can still, even though as a 10-year-old, I could probably name every single starter from that team. I just love that team. Brian Williams, the linebacker, was my first Packers autograph, and I still have it because that was at a time, I'm sure everybody, or maybe not everybody, but a lot of people remember what back in the day, like some Packers players would go around and play basketball against, in whether it was like the police or something in your communities like Medford, it was always, I think, the police officers and such, and they did it a couple times, and I went a couple times, and the first time I went, like, Medford never always got like the big stars and such, but I remember the first time I went, Brian Williams was the main one, and at halftime you had to like pick a table to line up and get one autograph, and I was hoping I was going to be Brian because that was the one I knew, and got Brian Williams' autograph. I think Lamont Hollenquist was there too, but that team I absolutely love. Desmond, for crying out loud, Fritz Shermer, Mike Holmgren, Sherman Lewis, the list goes. Coaches, yeah, come on, 90 Super Bowl 31 team was right up there. Obviously the other Super Bowl team, 2010 one. That season for me was just one of my favorites overall because, I was able to go to a few games that year. That was the last time Favre was at Lambeau as a Viking and was at that game, and just that was one of the more tense games I've ever been at. Going to the final 2 games of the regular season to get your ticket to the postseason, return to Titletown. That team was a lot of fun. But yeah, Packers overall, that's my number one. Brewers wise, I loved that 08 team with CC, Bronny, Prince, Corey. Jason Kendall was like the epitome of a Brewer player, just chugging some beer after getting to the postseason. He just looked like a Brewer player. Yo-Yo, there was just so many different characters. JJ, Hardy over there. I loved that 08 team. There were so many good moments and just getting over the hump. It was just like, love that team. Loved the 11 Brewers too, the 2011 Brewers, the 2018 Brewers. Loved last year's Brewers team, and big reason why I loved last year's Brewers team. I think it kind of starts with Pat Murphy, and just and really, I think you could say it for the Brewers the last few years. What we've witnessed or heard about, the chemistry within the clubhouse and the dugout and that fun-loving group, whether, Lo Kane and, different guys in there. You could just tell the energy was different. Willie Adames and that. So, you could make that case for the last few years, just how fun these Brewers teams have been personality-wise and such. But if I'm narrowing it down a little bit, probably 08, probably 18, throw in 11, but definitely last year's team too. And I always have a soft spot for the underdogs and the teams and the players that kind of go over expectations and such. So, Bucks team for me, it was 2021 when you got Giannis, Drew Holiday in there, Tucker, Brooke Lopez. 2021 easily. I loved that team. And I mentioned them, their loss is a heartbreaker, but, if you're a Badger fan, how do you not love the Badger basketball teams of Frank Kaminsky, Sam Decker, Nigel Hayes, Ben Brust, Bronson Koenig, Traylon Jackson, Duke. That when those runs in the Final Fours, not just because they were good and not because they went to these Final Fours and national championships, but you had Nigel Hayes with the stenographer, coming up with those tough words to see if they can get it out. That was just a fun-loving group of kids and players over there, and I absolutely loved watching those guys. And that was just a special team, and it just sucked when they couldn't. Both those years, right? One of the Harrison twins in Kentucky hitting that 3. Because I feel like if Wisconsin wins that, they're beating UConn in the national championship game, and then the following year they get to the national championship and the whole officiating Duke thing. But I loved that's one of my favorite teams of all time, if not my favorite team of all time, is that Badger basketball team 14-15. They were just so much fun to watch. So much fun to watch. Players, individual players and such that I should throw in one team because this was honestly one of my very first loves in sports. I got to throw out the 90s Magic, the mid-90s Orlando Magic. That's what got me really into sports. Shaq, Penny, Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott, Horace Grant, Brian Shaw, Donald Royal. I mean, I was a die-hard 90s Orlando Magic fan. That was my thing, and that's what really kind of got me. I mean, I was a Packers fan there, but I probably was more of a die-hard Orlando Magic 90s basketball fan than a football fan at that point. I was by the seasons, really. I mean, when it was fall up until, winter when football was done with, it was straight up football. But as soon as basketball, when that was over with, it was straight up basketball till the following football season. Because the Brewers stunk at that point. I was a little bit of a White Sox fan for whatever reason, but it was pretty much those two. But got to throw in the 90s Magic just because that sucked me in. That sucked me in. Players, I mean, my first player that I loved as a kid, growing up, every kid loved a player. I don't care if you don't love them now or whatever, but as a kid, if you're a sports fan now, you grew up as a kid loving a team or a player and you were drawn to them. And for me, my first one, the very first player that I had just a major love for was Shaq. It was Shaq. Still remember going through the catalogs and just wishing one year I would get a Shaq jersey, that I would just get that champion logo, black Shaq jersey. And finally, I still have that original one. Still have it hanging up on the wall in the man cave. It's probably like a crop top for me now. Still have that, but Shaq was my very first one that I was just like all about. I mean, I had a Shaq birthday party where I had like the figures, I don't want to call them action figures, but like the toys and the figures and all that. My first athlete that I collected for sports cards was Shaq. Shaq. That was my first love. Then it went into Green Bay with, Reggie White, Dion, with in football and such, and Farvey and that. But those were some of my very first loves. Because now when you get older, it's like, I don't know if I love that guy. I mean, Favre I'd have to throw in there because, I mean, when you go to college, I mean, for crying out loud, if any of my college roommates are listening, they would remember the one year we had 5 guys living in a house. And it was that 07 year. We had a Favre 8x10 framed outside the bathroom, like in the hallway. It's like that was the year of Favre for us. And still remember the day he retired, one of my roommates woke me up and said, all he said was turn the TV on. He walked out, and I did. I was like, oh. We embraced. We did it. We hugged some roommates, did a toast that night and that. So, yeah, I'd probably have to throw Favre in there too. But for me, it was like Shaq. It was Penny, Reggie, Favre. Those were the guys when I was a kid and such. Those were just some of my loves. Now, who would I shower, since we're speaking a little Green Bay, who would I kind of write out a Valentine's Day card, get one of those boxes that come in with like a set of 12, right? Those cheap cardboard ones. All the kids at school today are probably going to be passing them out. I know my kid is, but you got to go to the store, you got to get those boxes, and you get like those one-sheeters over there, and you say 2 and all that. So if you're picking up a box of that and you're picking up some candy or some flowers and that, who are you, if you're a Packers fan, going to be showering with some Valentine's Day love to try to convince them to be your Valentine, to convince them to come to your team? Okay? Who is that? It could be a free agent. It could be somebody that's on another team, but sounds like they may want out. All right. Again, who cares about contracts and all that? This is just for a fun thing. I'm gonna throw in. I'm gonna throw a bunch of flowers out there, and I'm gonna go cast my net wide and see how many fish I can actually reel into this thing. So, Myles Garrett, of course. I'm throwing him in there. Why not Max Crosby? I'll throw those 2 in there. Of course. I mean, we know Green Bay's biggest thing is, all right, pass rush. Let's get a couple of those dudes. Let's get a couple of those dudes over here. Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. Heck yeah. Let's do it. So I'm definitely, I mean, those are big guys too. So you might have to do a couple boxes of chocolate, and a couple, big oversized stuffed teddy bears and such. You're pulling out all the stops. You're sending some flowers every hour on the hour, trying to convince, hey, Green Bay's the place to go. Follow your heart. Come to Green Bay. Your heart is telling you to come to Green Bay. So those are the easy ones. Those are the easy ones. Heck, I might even look at maybe a little DJ Reed corner. If Jair's out, maybe you bring in a corner such. That might be a little bit lower level one. I'm still maybe looking at the wide receiver one, and I'll be like, hey, DK Metcalf. You know what I mean? Like, DK, what's your favorite flower? What's your favorite candy? We'll put together a little basket for you, a little Valentine's Day basket. Make everybody else jealous that we're throwing out a bunch of gifts for you. Come on over here, throw out a little bit to Devontae. Be like, Devontae, you want to come home and follow your heart back home, and maybe come a little bit cheaper though. Maybe take a little hometown discount. We'll throw in an extra, a few chocolates over there. That's definitely somebody I would send some Valentine's Days to. So, but those are like the four or five that came to my mind right away. Yeah. Dearest Miles, roses are red, violets are blue. Follow your hearts to the green and gold. I suck at rhymes, but right now cards like that. That's who I'm showering with. Come on. Let's get some defensive linemen. Pump up that pass rush over there. All right, that is going to do it for us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the Man Cave Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you could, 5-star rating, positive review so others can find the podcast. Till next time, I'm Dan Casper, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.